All right, let's continue tracking the story now and bring in Zimbali Mncube. He is a tax and budget policy researcher at the Institute for Economic Justice. Zimbali, it's great to talk to you. Thanks very much indeed for coming on. What is the Economic Justice Institute's first reaction to this decision, and now that it's been documented by the Finance Minister, to reverse the hike that would have come into effect?
Good afternoon, Michelle. Thank you for having us. I think we welcome the decision that the ill-advised VAT hike has been reversed. It's something that we've presented before Parliament, that it will have devastating impacts on low-income households, the poor, and the struggling middle class. And I think your viewers have rightly captured what we meant when we said that it would have a disproportionate impact on those with low income. However, we are very cautious of the risk that it poses to potentially budget cuts to essential services, which is something that in the media statement that was issued after midnight, it seems as if the National Treasury is saying that because we're reversing the VAT hike, this poses basically a threat to cutting expenditure to essential items. And we're saying that this, flies in the face of evidence that we've presented, which shows that there are viable alternatives. And we are very, very pleased that this morning, the political parties also emphasized that alternative measures should not mean that there is austerity and that the social wage is cut, but rather we should put forward a budget that fosters and enables inclusive growth.
Yeah, it's interesting. I just had this conversation with our previous guest as well, and what she was arguing is that the decision to reverse the VAT hike is not necessarily a good one. For one, it means that the basket of zero-rated foods will not increase. That was also part of the original VAT decision. And it also means that we still don't have enough revenue for essential services, healthcare, education.
Yeah, I mean, we do have options to raise revenue, like I said. We've proposed several alternatives, which include removing tax rebates that accrue to the wealthy or those that are earning above R1 million, which could raise about 51 billion. We've showed that if the government taps into the GFACTURE, which it did previously, which has about 300 billion, it could easily cover some of the essential services and the needs that needs to be filled. We've also called for restoring the corporate income tax, which government, by reducing it to 27%, is potentially lost about 12 billion. So these are just some of the measures that can be implemented immediately, and the government can see gains, which can then be redirected to social priorities. But in the medium term, there also needs to be discussion towards implementing wealth taxes, particularly the net wealth tax and financial transaction taxes, to ensure that we raise revenue sustainably. But the second point I want to highlight is that there's a figure that this 75 billion that the National Treasury has sort of highlighted, and I think it may be why some people are saying that we then need to plug this big hole. But it's important to highlight that the proposed VAT increase would have only brought about 13.5 billion. And as your guest rightly identified, given that the proposal is being reversed, it means the zero rating is also going to be reversed, which means now the government will have 2 billion, which was going to be foregone if the zero rating was going to go forward. In addition to that, SARS indicated that by the end of March, it collected higher than expected revenue of about 8.8 billion more than it expected. So when you take these two figures into account, you can clearly see that the 13.5 billion that needs to be covered this year can easily be plugged in with these two sort of examples that I've shown, as well as the other revenue proposals that we've put forward. So the manufactured crisis that the National Treasury is trying to put forward simply does not exist. In fact, it shows the National Treasury's unwillingness and ideological rejection of progressive tax measures.
Yeah, I'm glad you talk about how we can recover this money in the medium term, because longer term, there are things to consider, like the Auditor General's report year after year, in terms of the overspending, the fruitless and wasteful expenditure that we see in government and especially at municipal level. The fact is, it's difficult because when money is sent back to Treasury at the municipal level, that's actually not a saving, is it? It's a lost opportunity to build infrastructure and sort of kickstart revenue in that very municipality.
Indeed. I think there are challenges at the municipal level and as well as at the national level that are inhibiting spending expenditure towards the needs that it should be filling, and those that are posing challenges in terms of money being sent back should be addressed. I think that's true, and we recognize that there are these challenges that are facing municipalities and some government departments. But I think it doesn't take away from the fact that the challenge that we are facing today, whereby the country does not have a budget, is simply a manufactured crisis that is as a result of the National Treasury's unwillingness to consider the alternatives that we've put forward. And I think that the Parliament process up to so far has proven that with robust engagements, both from the public and from the various political parties that are represented in the committees in Parliament, solutions to challenges such as the one that you are pointing out can be found and should be found through the right channels, including Parliament.
The Institute for Economic Justice, the organization you represent, Zimbali, has advocated for a long time for a budget process that considers social justice, that has social justice at the heart of it. What have you found your experience to be this time round? Has it been social justice or politicking?
I think that we are beginning to see parliamentarians engage the budget with really serious robustness, and they are beginning to also be receptive of some of the proposals we're putting forward, not only ourselves, but this year there was over 23 oral submissions and many more written submissions, which we broadly aligned in saying that the government should put the needs of the majority at the center rather than simply debt stabilization. And I think the rejection of a VAT hike and possible threats to cut expenditure by not only ourselves, but political parties which are mandated by the public to represent them, simply points towards that there is a slight shift in the way that the budget is being read. However, we're not sure if this shift is also reflective of the internal processes within the National Treasury. And we're saying that it's time now for the president to ensure that the minister as well as the National Treasury are held accountable for actually failing, like you're saying, to put social justice at the center of the budget.